We're going to talk about this new anti-Belmont group that has $650,000 in funding right now. This story from Newsday by Jim Baumbach and Candice Ferrette, and they're both here on this week's Long Island News. Are you there?
I'm here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, Candice. Hi, Jim. I'm doing fantastic. How are the two of you doing?
Okay.
Doing great.
All righty. So I just want to let our listeners know before we get into it, I want to read a little bit of the story. It says that a new community group with $650,000 in funding is mounting strong opposition to the $1.2 billion plan to build an arena for the New York Islanders. So tell us more a little bit about the story.
Yeah, so basically there's an opposition group. It's not unusual for an opposition group to take place in these days, and there is already one that's very active. What's different with this group is that they're not very active, at least in the community. We're seeing more like in terms of flyers and activity online. We're not seeing real people out there, and that really is what fed our interest, is that we wanted to know more about what this group is, and then it became one of these stories where you open one door and it leads to another, and it leads to another, and lo and behold, we find out that they have $650,000 in funding, but we can't figure out where it originates from, and that obviously raised questions.
Yeah, I was reading the story, and I was very perplexed, and I was reading the whole entire thing, and I'm like, this sounds very suspicious, because I was reading it, and I'm like, they say they're a grassroots organization and they're getting $650,000. I mean, and they don't know where it's, and you don't know where it's coming from, and there's really no information about it. And for those of you who don't know, can you explain to the listening audience what is the Belmont Project? What is it about?
Sure. So it's a sports and entertainment project, and basically it exists solely for the Islanders Arena. If the Islanders Arena wasn't part of this, I don't think we'd be seeing this a $1.2 billion development. But that's number one. So it's got a Islanders Arena. It's got a retail portion to it. It's got 435,000 square feet of retail. It's got a 250 room hotel connected to it. So it's a pretty significant sized development. It's state-owned land, which is how the Islanders won the request for proposals to develop this project, and now it's going through the environmental review.
Mm-hmm. And Candice, do you have anything to add on that, or did Jim pretty much cover it all?
He pretty much covered it all. He's been covering the story from the very beginning when the Islanders first announced that they were interested in Belmont Park. So in terms of anything to add, and the mystery behind this group, I'd have to say that we couldn't really get this into the story, but maybe it's worth discussing that there's a rumor mill as to who might be behind this. Deep pockets, perhaps from somebody or a corporation who is concerned about competition in retail.
Right.
That was something that we were trying to nail down. And never did, because there is a major retail component to the project. But I have to just commend Jim. In terms of reporting, he really did follow the money, and it led to this Citizens for Responsible Community, which is based in Warrenton, Virginia, and an organization that really didn't have much of a presence. And I think, Jim, you left messages and they never got back to us. And so anyway, it really is still a mystery, and there are lots of rumors in the community. And I still continue to get email messages from people who are, puzzled as to who would have the kind of deep pockets to fund this thing.
Right. And there's one question that I had specifically because I was reading this story and something really just came up to my mind. I was looking at the story, and it says that this lobbying group, not the actual, this actual name of the group, Belmont Against the Mega Mall, but they were giving money to this California-based marketing firm. Now, I don't get this. Why would a marketing firm in California care about an arena being built in Long Island? It really doesn't make any sense to me. Why would they care?
Well, they're getting paid to care. I mean, they're operating the Elmont against the Mega Mall. So
right.
Clearly they're not doing this for free. They're doing they got a deal to do this. Who hired them? How did it all start? Those are questions I asked and couldn't get answers to. It was a question they didn't want to answer. Clearly,
I can tell there was probably a lot of little confidentiality throughout that whole entire situation that they really couldn't announce. And I was reading the story, and there were a lot of dead ends that I saw that you were probably doing a lot of the research, Jim and Candice, that you really couldn't find any. And the amount of money that they received, $650,000. What did they plan on spending? You said that it was you can't find any information. Do you have any information on what they're spending on?
So they're spending it in stuff that we're seeing. Like if you go to their Facebook page, you see the ad, where they attacked Senator Todd Kaminsky with Barack Obama impersonator. Obviously they had to pay the impersonator, and that person, I'm sure, comes at a pretty good cost because he's been doing that in different things.
Right.
They did a mailer, and people who got the mailer said it was a glossy type of mailer. It was clearly designed to stand out when you got it in the mail. People knocking on the doors and people going through people going through the Islanders parking lot and getting signatures. I'm sure they had to pay those people. And then on top of that, if you go, they have a Medium website where they show their vision for what Belmont is, and it's clearly someone designed this image of what Belmont should look like with ball fields. I mean that costs money. So I'm sure they're engaging in people that it just adds up. Is it $650,000 worth? Probably not. But so they clearly have something in the coffers. What they're going to do with it, we'll see.
And is this just one person that's heading this group, this Elmont against the mall, the Mega Mall? Is this person from Long Island, or is this from another state? Do you have any idea where this person is coming from?
So we know that the Mike McCune, I think is how you pronounce it, he lives in Manhasset, according to his bio on Mercury. He's a lobbyist who works for Mercury, high-powered in terms of he once worked for George Pataki, former governor. He's been in. If you Google, you'll see that he's engaged with a lot of big-time people before. He wouldn't talk to us for this story. He's a Long Islander, obviously not in the Belmont area. And then you have the other guy, Howard Kushlin, who runs the company out in West Hollywood. Obviously not a Long Islander. Then you have the four people who. The four locals who have their names attached to it. Those are the only 6 people that you can pin down and say these people are attached to this group.
I wonder if that West Hollywood group
Well,
is,
and just one other, Al D'Agostino, a very politically connected lawyer in Valley Stream, who represented the group, I think pro bono at some of the public hearings.
Good point. And through him, he got a traffic engineer that's from Ronkonkoma. But yeah, Al clearly was found by someone. Whether it's question. That's another question. How did they find Al D'Agostino, a politically connected person? Another question we don't have an answer to.
Right. And it was so strange because I was just looking at the amount, $650,000. People usually donate $650,000 to get a stadium built. They're spending $650,000 on preventing a stadium from getting built. It just sounds really fishy, in my opinion.
Well, it's also interesting in that their literature is not really. If they wanted to get headlines, and if they really wanted to attract attention, they would say they don't want to get the stadium built, but they're after the mall, the mega mall, as they say. So in a way, even though they were created in August and first started, being active online, in the fall, they really were under the radar in terms of public perception. Now, what were they doing behind the scenes? Who were they lobbying? Again, questions that we can only ask and not have answered. But if they really wanted attention, they would be after the arena, and like you say, but really it's not about the arena in this scenario.
It's very strange. Do they have a big presence on social media? You said they have a Facebook group. Do they have a lot of followers on there? Did you check?
They do not have many followers. At one point, it was me, Candice, and a couple of others. But right now, I mean, it's like 30.
We might have more now, actually.
Maybe now because we're actually live on Facebook, so maybe people might be tempted to actually just follow follow the group. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to give them free publicity in any ways. I'm trying to be as nonpartisan as possible on this issue. But
Yeah, go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
Go ahead, Candice.
No, one of the big questions that I think people have, at least in email or on Twitter, is $650,000 enough money to derail the project or to make a significant dent, to influence the people who are in the positions of power and are making the decisions on this project at this stage of the game? And that is sort of like, the big question, right? Other than where the money is actually coming from,
right?
But is it enough at this stage to do anything to significantly change the project?
Right. And have you talked to any local residents of Elmont? Are they a little skeptical of this whole entire situation?
Yeah, it's interesting because you have people in all different camps. I have reached out to the 4 people who were involved. 2 of them spoke, at some length about their involvement in the group. And then you have probably the most vocal person who's against the project, who's not aligned with Elmont Against the Mega Mall. This is Tammy Williams. She has her own group, the Belmont Park Community Coalition, and they've been very vocal in their protests and stuff like that. And she admits that she does not know where they get their money or what their true interest is in this, but she says that they have a shared interest, with her, that she wants to defeat this project, and she sees them along those lines. So she doesn't mind that she doesn't know where the money's coming from. And then you have other active people in the community, whether they're aligned with Belmont or they're just active, who are also annoyed because they feel like they're named. They feel like they're using them to attack to attack the project, and then that offends them.
And I just want to get like a rough percentage. I don't know if you would know off the top of your head, by the amount of Elmont residents you've talked to. Are most of them for the project or against the project? Maybe not for the stadium, but are they for the mega mall or the hotel?
Yeah, I'm going to opt out on that one because that one is a very difficult thing to say because there's with any type of huge development like this, and this is obviously a major development in this area.
Right.
You have all these people. Some people, sadly, probably don't even know what's going on with this, and then you have the engaged people who are either for it or against it. It's really impossible to know. I would say the politicians, they say that most people they speak to are for it. Usually in this scenario, the people you hear from are the people that are against it. So it's really impossible to really just gauge the community feelings about this.
I can understand that, especially if you just walk up to someone and you see the local Joe Smith walking to the local supermarket at Elmont. Maybe he's for it, but then but he's not vocal about it. Like you said, he's not vocal about it. He probably just talks about it to his friends and family, but he won't go out on social media and berate the project. It's going to be, you're right, the active ones. And do you have any idea when they're going to break ground? Did they have a groundbreaking ceremony, or are they when are they going to build the actual stadium?
They have not had a groundbreaking ceremony. We're not there yet. The earliest that could happen is probably June at some point like that. They need to finish the environmental review, which ESD, Empire State Development, the state agency that's overseeing this, they say it's going to be done and it's going to get through all the approvals by the end of June. They're pretty confident about that. And then a groundbreaking can occur after that. So, you would think at the earliest it would be sometime in June. We also have Belmont Stakes coming up too, which is a little bit of a curveball here. And then one other point I wanted to bring up just on the opposition and whether people are for it or against it. Candice has been at some of these public hearings, and I think she can speak to too, is that, the people who come out, now granted, if you're going to a public hearing, most likely you're not going to, throw away your Tuesday night to go there and say, I think this is going to be a good thing in this area. More likely you go. But, Candice, from your perspective, what was the sentiment that you got from people at those things?
In covering, municipal government on and off since I became a reporter. The people who always show up at these public hearings, usually anger drives them, right? To give up their Tuesday or Thursday night and sit in an auditorium and listen to their neighbors complain about something. I mean, you really have to have a significant motivation. And a lot of the people are always neighbors. I mean, early on it was a substation that was too close to an elementary school in Belrose. Then it was the height of the hotel, right? Which was in the beginning going to be the largest building in Nassau County. And now, I mean, I think a lot of the concerns are around traffic and transportation. I mean, that is really a prevailing concern among anyone who is against the project or against the size and the scope of the project.
All right, and are you going to keep on focusing on this story? Are the two of you still on the hunt to find out more about this organization?
Yeah,
yeah.
Great.
If you're out there, you're the one that did the 650. Tell us.
Good, great. Because I update us definitely once you give us an update. Please give us a call. I do thank you, Jim Baumbach and Candice Ferrette. Thank you for coming on this week's Long Island News. I do appreciate it. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
All right, no problem. Have a great weekend.
You too. Bye-bye.
That was Jim Baumbach and Candice Ferrette from Newsday.